Hi, my name is Andy Adair, and this is the We Are Big YouTube show. We Are Big focuses on Big Ten football. We're looking to bring you a weekly show here. This is episode 1, so really looking forward to building community and audience and really interacting and having some fun with Big Ten football. This episode, we're going to be looking into the new scheduling format, which teams won and lost with the new format, the top 5 non conference games for the 2023 season. With the new TV contract, there are some teams that are making concessions for the new TV contract, and we're going to see which team is making the most concessions for that contract. And then finally, we'll dig into the Northwestern football hazing scandal. So, without further ado, let's get started. All right, so let's get started with that new scheduling format. The Big Ten has called it the Flex Protect Plus model. Every program has a minimum of one protected rivalry, with a max of three protected rivalries, with the exception of Penn State, who has zero protected rivalries. So basically, it means Penn State doesn't have any rivals. They're not protecting the Michigan game or the Ohio State game. Penn State will be on a constant rotation. Every team will play every team every 2 years. So you're not going to get that long stretch, between, the last time Ohio State played Northwestern. You're not going to get a big wide range of, it's been 3 or 4 years since that team played that team. Weird quirks of the schedule. Like I said, Penn State has no protected opponents. And Nebraska's, they did not protect the USC game. So we're not making that shorter trip for logistics. They're not protecting a Nebraska USC game. Games that scream like odd matchups that you why are we doing this kind of type of thing? UCLA Rutgers, that's going to be a weird game. You're going to have UCLA travel all the way to New Jersey to play Rutgers. USC at Northwestern, especially with the scandal and everything going on now, but just USC at Northwestern. Imagine if that's a November game. USC coming into Little Kyle Field. It's going to be weird looking. Illinois at USC. Illinois gets to travel all the way out to USC and face them. And then Minnesota at UCLA. Just two teams you never really think about matching up. It's going to be weird seeing those games, but it's good to see new matchups and see new teams. I think for the winners in the 2024 season, Indiana only has to play one of the top four teams in Penn State and gets them at home. So they avoid Ohio State, Michigan. They avoid all the big hitters. Nebraska's in the same boat as Indiana, only pulls Penn State, but it is at Penn State. Biggest winner, Penn State has manageable road games, Indiana, Purdue, Rutgers, Wisconsin, and gets Ohio State and USC in Happy Valley and avoids Michigan in 2024. So if you're looking at the 2024 schedule, Penn State's going to get on the road. They're going to have Indiana, Purdue, Rutgers, Wisconsin, and then their home schedule, they get their two hardest games at home with Ohio State and USC. So looking ahead, next year's schedule looks kind of favorable for Penn State. The losers for the next schedule in 2024, Northwestern gets road games at Ohio State, Penn State, UCLA, and gets USC at home. Just brutal for one of the bottom tier teams on the Big Ten. Just absolutely brutal. Illinois pulls both Ohio State and USC on the road and gets Iowa and Michigan at home. So it's going to be very hard for Brett Bielema to continue to build up Illinois when you're getting four really hard games there. Biggest loser, I believe, is probably Wisconsin. Road games at Iowa, at Michigan, at Nebraska, and at USC. And their home game, they get Penn State. So Wisconsin's 2024 schedule is no longer that, when they were really strong, they kind of got the cakewalk of the Big Ten West. And if they avoided Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State, it really made it really manageable for them. Not in 2024. Wisconsin's going to get a rude awakening in scheduling in 2024 with, like I said, road games at Iowa, at Michigan, at Nebraska, and at USC, and then their home game against Penn State. Just a brutal schedule there. It's going to be really fun to see going forward. There's always going to be ways to tweak it. This is only like it's only set in stone for 2 seasons. So it's not like, they have to stick with this, but it's really going to be really cool to see USC, UCLA, and some of these really historic Big Ten programs. And it's a breath of fresh air, if you say, tired of watching Northwestern at Indiana. Well, now you get some USC, UCLA sprinkled in there. And with this new scheduling format, it protects the really important games, but it also rotates through the entire conference, so the scheduling is more balanced. There's no more divisions, so you're not going to have the at Purdue at Michigan Big Ten title. You're going to get the Michigan Ohio State or Michigan Penn State or whoever. You're going to get the two best teams from the scheduling format, which I think is very important for the Big Ten moving forward. Now let's jump into the top five non-conference games for the 2023 season. Have a lot to pick from with Big Ten. Most teams, except for Michigan, is playing a Power Five team. So let's get started. Starting with number five, week 3, we get Washington at MSU. Rematch from last season. Washington won 39-28. Kind of started the downfall for MSU last season, kind of exposed what their weaknesses were. And Michigan State never really recovered from that game last year. So what's nice is MSU gets the rematch. They're at home this year. This is the first game we're going to learn about Michigan State in 2023. They start off with their two easy games. In week 3, Washington comes. Michigan State's secondary was really weak last season. And Michael Penix Jr., Washington, that group of receivers they have over there, it's really going to test this new defense at Michigan State. And we're going to learn a lot about Michigan State this game, I believe. It's going to be really exciting. It's going to be a 5:30 start time on Peacock, so kind of a weird timing. But with the TV contract, which we'll get into later, some teams are making some concessions for that. So at the 5th best non-conference game, we have Washington at MSU, and that's week 3 on September 16th. For the 4th best non-conference game, we're going to stay in week 3. Kind of a weird matchup. Minnesota at North Carolina. We got the contrasting styles of Minnesota, kind of ground pound defense. We're going to slow this down. We're going to bog down this game, make every yard tough for you. And then you got North Carolina with the quarterback over there, May. It's really cool to see Big Ten ACC matchups. This one, not exactly expected. Minnesota, North Carolina. That's going to be our 4th best non-conference game, and once again, that is 9:16 on week 3. Our 3rd best non-conference game is actually going to be week 1. Going to this game, West Virginia at Penn State. First of a home and home, so next year Penn State will go to West Virginia. What's really intriguing about this game is the Drew Aller era begins. 7:30 kick time, so Beaver Stadium will be rocking. It's a helmet stripe game, so not quite the whiteout, but pretty darn close. It's the Big Ten's first game on Peacock or NBC Peacock on a primetime schedule. Should be really exciting. I know West Virginia is slated to finish last in the Big 12, but so was TCU last year. So it's going to be really exciting. Penn State, West Virginia comes in at number 3 on our top 5 non-conference games. Number 2, we're going to move to week 4. So that's September 23rd. Nebraska at Colorado. Rivalry renewed. New coaches, Matt Rule trying to reinvigorate that Nebraska program. And then you got Deion Sanders at Colorado. 2 programs with the new coaches, like I said, looking to return to former glory. You got the Deion versus Matt Rule. Should be really exciting. I expect the press conferences leading up to this game will be pretty interesting with Deion and Matt Rule. Just it's that old Big 12 matchup that was always interesting back when both teams were there. So coming at number 2, we got Nebraska at Colorado. Top non-conference game. We're going to stay in week 4. It's going to be Ohio State Notre Dame. It's the biggest non-conference game on the schedule for the Big Ten. Ohio State will have a new quarterback. They're going to South Bend, looking at an improved Notre Dame team that's looking for revenge from last season. Once again, it's a rematch from last season. Notre Dame, both teams, are going to be 3-0 coming into this. An almost win for Ohio State when you're looking at it, because they're going to be Penn State's improved. Penn State's looking like they might actually contend this year, and you also have Michigan on the schedule. So can Ohio State really afford to lose at Notre Dame? they'd have to run the table basically after that. So I think that's why this game ranks so high. Um, is because it's almost a must win for Ohio State. If they lose this game, they're going to have to run the table. They're going to have to beat Michigan and Ohio State, Michigan and Penn State to make up for it. So there we have it, the top 5 non-conference games. Number 5, Washington at Michigan State. Number 4, Minnesota at North Carolina. Number 3, West Virginia at Penn State. Number 2, Nebraska at Colorado. And the top game being the Ohio State at Notre Dame. So let's look at the team that's making the most concessions for the new TV contract. If you look at the schedule this season, one team really jumps out to me. It's Michigan State. They're making the most moves in their schedule for this season. I mean, they're going to be on prime time. They're going to be on TV a lot more, with like on Peacock and NBC. But it comes with moving some games. So now Michigan State, you're looking at their schedule. They have 2 Friday games. September 1st against Central Michigan and 11/24 against Penn State. They have a game that's exclusively on Peacock. They have a night game at Ohio State, and the Penn State game at the end of the season has been moved to a neutral site Ford Field on Black Friday. So they've had 2 home games moved to Friday nights. The biggest non-conference game on the schedule moved to Peacock only, and a weird 5 p.m. start time. I can't remember the last time a Big Ten game started at 5 p.m. One of their home games, like I said, moved to a neutral site. Traveled to Ohio State in the middle of November for a night game. That could be brutal. Michigan State, with all these concessions, they're kind of making a standout. We're going to be on TV. We're going to be on national TV more. But if they struggle, it's only going to amplify their struggles. So if they have a repeat of last season where they really struggled to play good football or beat any good teams, really, it's only going to be worse because you're going to be on prime time and a lot of recruits. You're going to lose some of your prestige. But I do commend Michigan State. I mean, they're going to, like I said, both Friday games are going to be prime time. They're going to be the only Big Ten team playing at that time. So you're going to have a lot of eyes on your games. And moving the Ohio State game at night because Peacock needs a night game. Going down to Ohio in November, never fun to play a night game in November. That's why the Big Ten's been strongly against it. But once you have the TV money involved, you kind of have to make it make sense. But we're going to see a lot of Michigan State this season on national TV and in prime time. So hopefully they can kind of live up to the hype. So now let's talk a little bit about the Northwestern football hazing scandal with Pat Fitzgerald. Um, really surprised that this news came out, but in today's world, anything that's going on, it's going to come out eventually. It's not on the same level as the Penn State scandal with Sandusky and Paterno, but it is still alarming. I mean, you have students with just weird sexual conduct stuff and hazing and just not a good environment or culture coming out of the reports from Northwestern. It's really surprising, Northwestern, they're this prestigious school. You think, oh, it can't happen. This stuff can happen at any school. It's just based on what culture is allowed there. It's really kind of crazy. It looks like, if you're on Twitter, you're seeing some of these reports coming out from the 1990s that this stuff was going on then. So it's kind of crazy when you really think about it, that this could have been happening for the last 20 years, not just under Pat Fitzgerald. It's all about culture. It can't go on nowadays. In this time in the world, you can't have these type of things happening. Did Pat Fitzgerald deserve to lose his job? I think so. I mean, with all the reports coming out, I mean, you can say, yeah, it's a disgruntled former player, but the story keeps getting corroborated. So, I mean, you're talking 15 plus student athletes have come forward and have said basically the same things are going on. So if you really look at it, I mean, when you're the head football coach, You are in charge of the culture of the program. So you are in charge of anything and everything that happens there. Whether you know about it or not, you are in charge of the program. So anything the program participates in falls under you. I know we had some, there was some backlash on Twitter, from the usual suspects, Clay Travis, Danny Cannell, Darrell Vell. I mean, just coming to Pat Fitzgerald's, side, you can't fire him for this, blah, blah, blah. It was only a 2 week suspension. So why did he get fired after the news came out? We live in a reactionary time period. You come out, you release something, and you get a certain response. You're going to walk it back and you're going to come out with probably the correct response. I think they probably hastily, maybe not hastily, but they came out with that 2 week suspension thinking it would be enough. But then the student reporters at Northwestern really kind of blew the story open. And I think, more information came out to light. And I think the correct call was made. I don't think Pat Fitzgerald should be the head coach there anymore. I mean, the culture, when you're talking about the hazing and sexual misconduct, and it's just a weird, student athletes don't need to go through that. Um, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Northwestern going forward. Not a super, they're not a super contender, but if you look at it, they have been in the Big Ten championship before, and that's a lot more than some teams can say. It's going to be really interesting before. I don't think they hire a new coach before the season starts. I think you're going to be an interim tag for probably most of the season. It is an attractive job because it is in the Big Ten. With Northwestern, I mean, the NIL's probably not there yet, but it could be with all the Northwestern alums. I think you could really see it, and it's in the Big Ten, so it's going to be desirable. We're moving to a Power Two conference kind of mentality where it's Big Ten, SEC, and nobody else matters. And that's kind of evident with all the TV money. I mean, all the money's in the Big Ten and in the SEC. So those two conferences are only going to get stronger. If a job comes open in one of those two conferences, it's going to be highly sought after. I know you've heard Mike Kafka, the old quarterback who was the offense coordinator at New York for the Giants. I don't know if he'd have interest in it or if he's qualified for it. They're talking about bringing back maybe even like Dave Wanstead as a advisor role for this season. It's just going to be kind of crazy to see. You're going to have all the offense coordinators, defense coordinators come out. Um, there's going to be a lot of high profile people linked to this job, I think. So it's going to be, you can't predict who's going to be the next head coach at Northwestern. It's sad to see Pat Fitzgerald go, but with all the news coming out of what happened, I think it needed to happen. All right, so that's pretty much all I have for episode 1. Thanks for watching, listening. Going forward, like I said, I plan to do this every week. Topics, will come up every week. Can't really predict what's going to be kind of relevant going forward. Get a little bit more into recruiting maybe next time. Expansion, conference expansion is always going to be there. What teams is the Big Ten looking at? Are we going to go pluck from the ACC? Notre Dame, the independent, more Pac-12 teams. It's really hard to say, especially with a new Big Ten president. But yeah, thank you for watching and listening. And I hope you subscribe, like, review, all the things you're supposed to do on YouTube channels. Once again, thanks for watching.